Hello everybody and welcome to my Afterthoughts video regarding the movie Primal Fear. Oh boy, was that a fantastic movie. I mean, it had a mind-blowing story, it had amazing twists and brilliant acting. I mean, I was just blown away by this movie. Such a great experience, and as you know, of course, I was also in the movie. I will talk about this at the end of this video, but first let's look at the story. I mean, what I liked so much about this story was how obvious they made it at first that Aaron Stampler is clearly the murderer. I mean, he ran from the scene all covered in blood, and there were footprints and the murder weapon and everything. So it was very clear that he was the one who murdered the person. But then they introduced an element of there maybe was a third person there, plus the blackouts that Aaron experienced when he lost time. And all of a sudden now we have a little doubt. It wasn't very likely that there was a third person, but you never know, it could be. So then we kept watching, and later in the movie, suddenly experienced this split personality person, Roy, shows up. First just a glimpse, and then he changes completely, and that was just such a huge twist, and like, wow, that was amazing. And now, of course, we, the audience, believed that, okay, it's pretty clear what's going on. I guess Aaron Stampler has split personality and Roy is actually responsible for the murders, but how can you prove that? And it was just one twist after another, and then all the way in the end there was another major twist when we actually learn that Aaron Stampler never existed. Roy made it all up, and it was always Roy just playing Aaron Stampler, and that was just mind-blowing. I loved it. It was such an intellectual battle back and forth in the courtroom, and then with all those twists, really amazing, brilliant writing, great story. And then of course the acting. I mean, one cannot overlook the acting by Edward Norton, and I looked it up. It was actually his first motion picture. It was his debut in a motion picture. So that was amazing. I couldn't believe it. I read that over 2,000 people auditioned for this part, and ultimately, and that included Leonardo DiCaprio and I think Matt Damon and a whole bunch of people, but ultimately they chose Edward Norton. What a dream role to play. And I also read that this whole stuttering that Aaron Stampler was stuttering was actually Edward Norton's idea. And if that is really true, then I have to say the director has to take off the hat and say thank you, Edward Norton, because that was just a brilliant choice. So his acting was outstanding, and I thought he should absolutely win the Oscar for Best Supporting Role. And I did look it up when he was nominated. He didn't win though. And when I saw that he didn't win, I thought, well then, when 2 years later American History X came out, he should at least have won for that one, but he again didn't win. But I have to say, I mean, Oscars, who cares about them anyway? They obviously don't know what they're doing, and they're probably influenced by inner and outer politics. Who cares? I stopped watching them many years ago. But Edward Norton did win the Golden Globe, and he won a whole bunch of other awards for this role and other roles. So really amazing. And what else? My favorite moment, I guess my favorite moment was when we saw Roy the very first time, when the doctor said, you know what I can do with this? She was tapping the camera, and he turns around, how the fuck should I know? Like, whoa, that was just an amazing moment. But I have to say, pretty much every time Edward Norton was on screen, it was my favorite moment. It was just so riveting to watch him and his transformations. I mean, how he played those two opposite characters so flawlessly was just incredible. And the transformations from one person to the other, I was blown away. I could not take my eyes off the screen. That was amazing performance. This guy is a acting genius, at least in those movies that I have seen. 2 thumbs up. That was awesome. And of course, there were other things I liked about the movie. For example, I really enjoyed the love-hate relationship between Richard Gere and Laura Linney's character. That was fun to watch and made it so much more interesting to see them battle in the court and then outside the courtroom. That was very interesting. And also, what was it? Oh yeah, the character arc of Richard Gere's character, Martin Vale. You know, there wasn't really a big character arc at first because he was always a little narcissistic and arrogant lawyer, you know. But then towards the end, I mean, the very last scene kind of gave him a change because he was always the guy using other people. I mean, he even used his ex-lover, you know. But then in the end, it was revealed that he himself was being used big time. And you could see it in his face how it changed him when he walked outside the courtroom. He just stood there. So that was his arc, and that was very well done as well. And another thing I noticed when I did the editing, and by the way, the editing was just so much fun, even though it took over 30 hours, but listening to every line again, that was great. That was really good. And I realized that, and I didn't even remember that anymore until I did the editing, that at the end, Roy actually admitted to killing Linda as well. So technically speaking, that could be a second trial because there wouldn't be double jeopardy and anything, you know. So technically one could bring new charges and try him for killing Linda. But, you know, that's besides the point. But great stuff, really amazing movie. And now to this whole extra work I did in this film. You know, in the 90s, I moved to this country. I hardly spoke a word of English, but I managed to get an apartment, a studio apartment on Hollywood Boulevard for $475. And they had a pool, and I was sitting outside the pool, and there was a young woman asking me, "What are you doing here?" You know, and I was like, "Oh, from Switzerland, movies." You know? So she told me to start doing extra work. She gave me the information, I signed up, and I started doing extra work while I was learning English and learning the business and everything, because soon thereafter I found myself on Primal Fear, you know, and I was cast or picked or whatever as one of the court marshals or a bailiff or whatever you call those people, court officers. And I showed up there, you know, they put me in the uniform. I was sitting there for like 14 hours the first day and didn't use me at all. I was just sitting there in the holding area, eating from the craft service food, you know, and watching everybody. That was the thing. I wasn't just an extra who showed up in the morning and said, "Where's the effing coffee?" You know, we had enough people like that, but I was actually watching. I tried to learn as much as I could to see how a movie set is run and all that stuff. And then after the first day, they asked me to come back, and I went back and I sat there for another 14 hours, didn't use me. And then finally, the third day, I was able to go into the courtroom and watch the entire scene play out many times because, you know, you have the different angles, so you got to do the scene over and over again. And I remember it was so freaking hot on this movie set that looked like a courtroom. And they had this big hose, I mean, 3 feet big diameter, you know, and just blasting cold air in whenever they didn't shoot. And as soon as they were shooting, they turned everything off, of course, because you can't have the actors sweating and stuff. So, but as soon as the director said cut, bam, they blasted the cold air back into the room. It was very interesting to see this whole thing, you know. So it was fun working that movie, and I probably worked in about 200 different TV shows and movies and commercials, and there's a few more movies I want to watch where I know I'm in there somewhere. Usually you don't see yourself, you know, but sometimes you know, if you're lucky, you can actually spot yourself, and that's always fun. So that was our experience for Primal Fear. Great movie night we had. We talked about it for a long time afterwards. So thank you so much for this recommendation, and I will see you on the next one. Okay, bye-bye.